The Bloodline storyline is one of the most well-crafted stories WWE has ever told. Throughout all of the drama, one man quietly watched as everything unfolded. He burst onto the scene seemingly out of nowhere and became the silent but deadly enforcer of the group. But how did he turn from an interesting prospect to one of the most important pieces to WWE's premier storyline in less than a year? This is the story of the man who will put an end to the Bloodline once and for all. Born in Sacramento, California, Joseph Yokozuna Fatu, named after Hall of Famer Yokozuna, is the fifth and youngest son of Solofa Fatu Jr., or as we know him, Rikishi. As a member of the legendary Anoa'i family, he was exposed to the wrestling scene early in his life. However, much like his older brothers in Jonathan and Joshua Fatu, aka Jimmy and Jey Uso, he didn't start his sports career with wrestling. Instead, he first played American football at American River College and then at Dickinson State University. It was only after college that he left football in order to pursue a career in wrestling. Trained by his father Rikishi, he would officially make his wrestling debut in 2018 at an independent circuit called Future Stars of Wrestling. Donning the name of Sefa Fatu, he displayed his wrestling prowess early on, winning the FSW Nevada State Championship on April of 2019. He would also later become the Arizona Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion and held the belt for a whopping 418 days. Wrestling for various indie promotions, it was clear that the man is a promising talent and WWE execs definitely saw it too, as on August of 2021, it was announced that he had signed a WWE deal under their developmental brand, NXT. He'd make his debut in October the same year at Halloween Havoc, now under the name Solo Sikoa. Solo immediately made an impact, destroying one of NXT's top stars in Grayson Waller, after which he went on an absolute tear not just in NXT but also in 205 Live, beating the likes of Grayson Waller, LA Knight, and Santos Escobar. It didn't take long for Solo to become a fan favorite in NXT and he was given the moniker of Street Champ. His first real feud in NXT came about when he was attacked by Boa of Tiansha. Anyone else remembers that whole thing? Their first match though ended in a double countout after they brawled outside. And so the next one was, as they called it, a no disqualification false count anywhere match. Sounds redundant if you ask me, in which Solo won. After that, Solo briefly got in the crosshairs of Imperium in a one-on-one match with none other than Solo lost since he just wasn't at Gunter's level at that point yet. But this is a matchup that should definitely happen again in the main roster down the line. His biggest match yet came during NXT Stand and Deliver 2022, where he competed in a 5-way ladder match for the NXT North American title. That match would be an absolute banger! And no surprise there, as NXT always seems to deliver when it comes to multi-man ladder matches, and this one was no different. Unfortunately, Solo failed to capture the title, with Cameron Grimes becoming the new North American champion. He'd compete for the title 2 more times after that, both ending in a loss as well. Towards the end of his NXT run, Solo found himself feuding with Von Wagner. They had 2 barn burner matches and in the end, Solo won. It was later revealed that Solo had suffered a knee injury as a result of their match and will be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Though this was more than likely a work injury to conveniently write Solo off TV for huge plans that will unfold just a month later. On September of 2022, during the undisputed Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle, Solo would make his shocking debut, costing Drew the match and helping his cousin retain the title. And with that, the Bloodline just went from dominant to damn near unbeatable, adding another important piece to the story. Hey, if you liked the video so far, why not give it a like and subscribe? It only takes 1 second and it would really help the channel a lot. Solo was immediately put in the spotlight as part of the main event of SmackDown after the pay-per-view, where he faced off against the man he screwed for the title, Drew McIntyre. This ended in a no contest though when Drew was attacked by then rival Karrion Kross. But before Solo would fully make the jump to the main roster, he had one last unfinished business down in NXT, and that is winning the title he first competed for. And he did just that, defeating Carmelo Hayes to become the new NXT North American champion. What happened after though was a bit of a confusing mess. Solo took the belt to the main roster, even defending it on SmackDown, so everyone thought he was gonna be defending it on both brands. But just a few days after, HBK stripped him of the title after quote-unquote the circumstances with which he won it. A shame that his only title run so far ended before it truly began. The jump to the main roster is complete, and came with it was a complete 180 in character change. Gone is the street champ in favor of a more quiet and brooding persona as the enforcer of the Bloodline. Much like his early days on NXT, Solo went on an absolute tear, destroying everyone on his path and showing why he's the most dangerous man on the faction. Solo also began using some of the moves we've seen from his uncle, the late great Umaga, rest in peace to the legend, as a way to pay tribute. And it really couldn't have been more perfect as Solo fits the bill of a modern day Umaga. As of this writing, he's one of the most protected stars in the company right now, winning pretty much all of his matches in the main roster. His rare singles loss came against a white-hot Cody Rhodes before Mania. Solo's meteoric rise to the scene is really quite unprecedented. Just 2 months after his jump to the main roster, he's now main eventing Survivor Series as part of the War Games match, where he was a huge factor for the Bloodline getting the W. His time with the Bloodline not only rekindled the bond with his cousin Roman Reigns, but Solo began to develop a very oozy partnership with Sami Zayn as well. Whether it was backstage segments or teaming up in a match, the chemistry between these two are very apparent, especially when Sami makes him break character over and over again. However, this bond disintegrated during the trial of Sami Zayn, when a furious tribal chief signals Solo to deliver a Samoan spike to Sami, but in the very last second, Jey Uso of all people stops his brother from doing the deed. The cracks in the bloodline continued to show as the first domino would fall when Sami turned on Roman at Royal Rumble. Solo, now at odds with the man he once considered the brother, defeated Sami Zayn in one-on-one action. At WrestleMania 39, Solo would help, and I mean help, Roman Reigns regain the title against Cody Rhodes. But his brothers weren't too fortunate as they would lose the undisputed tag team titles to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. The seeds of dissension continued to be planted after WrestleMania as Roman started to become increasingly hostile to the Usos, berating them on every turn. At Backlash, Solo and the Usos had a 6-man tag team match against Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Matt Riddle, which they won, but the dysfunction within the brothers clearly showed during the match. And then the straw that finally broke the camel's back. At Night of Champions, Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns, yes, not the Usos, faced Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the undisputed tag team championship. During the match, an accidental super kick from the Usos to their brother Solo caused the tribal chief to completely lose it on Jey. And on a shocking turn of events, Jimmy, who sad enough, super kicked the shit out of Roman. Solo and Roman lost the match as you can imagine. On the weeks that followed, Jey was faced with a big decision to side with the tribal chief or with his own brother Jimmy. And as we all know now, Jey chose the latter. But where does Solo stand in all of this? Well, at one point it looked like he sided with his brothers, but out of nowhere, Solo would hit a Samoan spike on Jimmy, making it clear where his allegiance lies. What worked and has been working so far with Solo in the main roster is that he has his own personality. He's not just Jimmy and Jey Uso's younger brother, he's a man with different motivations. What that is, we don't know yet. And that is made even more apparent now that he chose to be loyal to the tribal chief while knowing full well that he'll be at odds with his own brothers. The Bloodline Civil War has begun, and this story would reach its climax sooner rather than later. But the man who will put a stop to Roman's tyranny isn't Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens, it isn't the Usos, heck it's not even Cody Rhodes. Like someone else before, that man will be Solo Sikoa. The story is just beginning for the street champ, and the sky's the limit for what he can achieve once he finally ends the Bloodline for good and he goes